We all know the TV show Yellowstone takes a lot of liberties about living in Montana, but what you might not know is that they actually get a lot right. So in this video, we're going to look at what the TV show gets right about living in Montana. The first thing they get right, and probably the most obvious, is that Montana is incredibly beautiful. We are a mountainous state with vast valleys and high peaks and great trees and rivers and lakes. It's really one of a kind. There's no state like Montana. We're called the Big Sky State for a reason, and if you don't understand, you're just going to have to come out here and experience it for yourself. It's just an amazingly beautiful state, so it's a pretty easy choice for them to incorporate that scenery into the show, because honestly, you need to see Montana in person to really appreciate it. It's just awesomely beautiful. We have so much nature here. In fact, there's only about 7.5 people per square mile in Montana. We're one of the biggest states in the country, but we're also one of the least populated states in the country. So you just have endless, vast wilderness and landscape and nature. It's really one of a kind. Another thing they get right in the show is that Montanans like their beer.
Looks like you boys could use some beer, huh? Oh my goodness.
You're gonna notice in the bunkhouse every night they're cracking open a cold one and they're having a good time. That's a pretty accurate depiction of Montana. I've had other people move here that I'm friends with that was kind of a culture shock to them, that the amount of alcohol that Montanans drink was a little bit surprising. Now, obviously there's a big downside to that, but it's part of the culture here. You know, you work hard and you play hard and you have a drink, and it's just what a lot of people do. Now, you don't have to drink to fit in Montana. You know, for the most part, people don't care if you drink or not, but Montanans like their beer. We have microbreweries all over the place. It's definitely a craft here. It's an artwork, and we just like our beer. So the average adult in Montana actually consumes 41 gallons of beer per year. So it's a big number. We're actually third in the nation. We're only behind North Dakota and New Hampshire. So beer is definitely a part of the culture here. And, you know, if you're gonna come to Montana, try out one of the microbrews. There's some really awesome beers here. And if you don't like to drink, then don't. It's not a big deal. One thing that's referenced several times throughout the show is Murdoch's.
Where'd you get your jacket?
Murdoch's, I believe in doing.
So this is something that they absolutely get right. Murdoch's is an awesome store. So it started right here in Bozeman in 1996. So they put their first store, they had a few employees, it was a small operation, and Murdoch's is a ranch supply, sporting good clothing store. And they have a lot of just your everyday necessities, especially if you're in more of a rural area or farm and ranch life. You know, it's somewhere where you can go get a nice pair of Wranglers and also buy a gun. They carry high quality goods. It's not gonna be like your big box store. And it's just a great atmosphere. They have awesome customer service and they're a good store. So we have 2 stores in Bozeman now that are huge and a third one being built right now. And they have over 35 stores now across the country in Colorado, Texas, Nebraska. And it's just a really good store. I think they're in Wyoming too, and they're going everywhere. So if you don't have a Murdoch's in your area, there's a good chance that one is coming in the future if you're in more of a rural area. And you know, just check it out when you're visiting Montana. It's a good store where you can probably find something that you need. So one thing that's a common theme throughout all of the seasons of Yellowstone is housing prices in the Gallatin Valley. It's not a cheap place to live. Those mountains are expensive. People are paying for the views. They're paying for the resort life with Big Sky and with, you know, all the ski resorts here and in our area. And it's just not a cheap place to live. So housing is a big deal. And while I don't fully agree with all the reasons that they have for that in the show, they're right when they say that people can't afford to live here. And that leads to my final point of what they get right, and that's local resentment towards out-of-staters. A big reason for those housing prices is out-of-state people migrating into Bozeman, specifically from California. It's nothing against California, it's just that they have a huge population that's moving here. So we see a lot of migration from there. In fact, California and San Francisco had Montana as the #1 place for people moving to during the pandemic. So there was a big influx of people here. Supply couldn't match it, so prices skyrocketed. It wasn't cheap to live here before that, and it just compounded the issue. So there is a lot of resentment towards out-of-staters here. Now, part of that is political, part of that is housing prices, to where they feel like all of the area is getting developed. And when we talked earlier about the appreciation for the land, people are having a hard time with the change that they're seeing with another building development going in where there used to be a nice green prairie. So that's something that is real, that they nail. I don't think it's too big of an issue. If you mesh in here, it's not going to be a big deal. But if you come in here and you have California plates on your car and you drive a Prius, just know that you might get some funny looks. So that's something that the show nails. And they actually don't get a lot right in the show. So make sure to watch this video. It's everything that they get wrong about the show. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll catch you on the next one.